Despite being the second game in the series, Call of Duty 2 laid down a lot of the actual foundations for the franchise, quite literally with the introduction of the Infinity Ward engine, the same engine that is still today used for Call of Duty games, albeit in a heavily modified state. When played on modern hardware, the elements of future games can be clearly seen, from more realistic character proportions, with some high quality textures, and even the heavy breathing heard when injured. This game is much better future-proof with the space age ability to go 16:9 and an FOV even tied to the resolution. But I can't imagine it knew exactly how high resolution screens would eventually become. All this wouldn't have been as apparent at the time the game came out, at least if the pre-recorded intro cutscene is anything to go off of. The game once again splits its campaign among the good, bad, and ugly, as you fight against the ever-infamous Nazis. The Soviets fight the Nazis in the winter of Stalingrad, the only place they ever fought obviously, the British in Africa, and the Americans in France. Even with this somewhat narrow scope, this game captures an incredible sense of scale, especially compared to more recent Second World War Call of Duty games. Call of Duty 2 lays heavily into its presentation, taking the series' landmark scripting up to a level that we would recognize, seen best here in the missions like the attack on Pointe du Hoc, or the Soviet pipe mission, which is unfortunately not about smoking. In another Soviet mission, you find yourself in an apartment building which, rather than clearing floor by floor, you simply demolish. A very un-Call of Duty-like action that I choose to believe is this game's reference to the hellish mission of a similar nature in this game's predecessor. The scripting makes this game much more enjoyable as an experience, as it acts as a primary way to progress the events of the game. The gunplay, aiming, and movement are vastly superior as well. The guns act and feel as one would expect from Call of Duty. Hipfire accuracy is greatly reduced, and gun sights are more clear and allow the liberal use of ADS. This is likely due to it feeling more familiar with its shared engine. Enemies still tend to get back up and start shooting again, but it's much more telegraphed than it was in the first game. The improved character animations are sometimes seen better when looking at the enemy. Injured enemies may crawl around, others may be too injured to get back up and instead pull out a pistol and shoot at you from the ground. All this to simply say the level of polish is far more apparent. The tank missions also return in the British Desert campaign. Although there are more than one, the missions are much shorter, but it's still a nice way to improve the pacing. What is also improved is the roster of mission types. There are defense missions that aren't as frequent nor as unfair as their predecessor, house clearing missions that are very common and somewhat repetitive, and specialty missions that are often the heavily scripted and cinematic type as mentioned earlier. There's a much better balance of these missions, and it helps the game avoid feeling more muddy and derivative than it already is. Regardless, Call of Duty 2 is a very hard game to place in the franchise. Having experienced its successors, I can describe this game as nothing more than Call of Duty diluted down to its base form. This may be a downside to some, but I believe simplicity is elegant. One may find this game refreshing because of what it lacks. I most certainly did.